Service members and vets, the average American saves just 4% of their income and wastes 33% of their check on housing. But what if I told you there's a way to eliminate that 33% and cut your time to retirement in half? I did this while I was still in the military, and I want to show you how. All right, right off the bat, let's talk about what is house hacking. House hacking is essentially any way that you can have other people paying your mortgage. So there are a lot of different ways that this can work, but my favorite are where you buy a duplex, a triplex, or a fourplex. You live in one unit, you rent the other units out, or you buy a big 5-6 bedroom single family house and you rent all the bedrooms out. And I'll tell you, if you're like a young enlisted dude or a single couple, the house hack with a fourplex is probably my favorite move. And if you're like a young lieutenant or a single recruiter or whatever, and you've got peers that can rent your spaces, then the single family house where you all kind of get to live barrack style together and have that kind of community, but you're still living for free is great. In both of these strategies, you can maximize your return because other people are paying your mortgage down. You get to live for free, which means you get to save all the money you would have been paying on rent, that 33% that goes to housing, and you now get to reinvest that. And we're going to talk about how that math checks out here in a minute. But there are other ways you could do this too. You could put a tiny home in the back and rent that out. You can convert your garage into an ADU, which is like an additional dwelling unit or a mother-in-law suite, and you can rent that out. I actually had a friend who converted his garage to an ADU, lived in the garage, rented the whole house out, and he made money off living in this house. And then you could also, I've even seen people just rent an RV and park it in the driveway, and they charge rent for that RV, and that helps cover their mortgage. Now, that one RV did not allow them to live for free, but it did take a cut out of their mortgage, which is awesome. And so there's a lot of different ways you can use this strategy, but essentially you're getting other people to help you pay down your mortgage, which means you can save your BAH for future investments and your savings and emergency fund, which really, really, really jumpstarts your financial freedom journey. And the best part is that because this is a house you're living in, you can utilize the VA loan, which means you can put zero down. You don't have to save up for a down payment. You can start on this the moment you're eligible to buy a house, and you can do it zero money out of pocket with an incredible interest rate. There are so many perks of the VA loan that can really help you crush it with this strategy. Now, I've done this 3 times. My very first property was a duplex. I bought it for $80,000. I owned it for 7 years. I sold it for $165,000. I put a total of $4,000 into that house between closing costs and fees and the some flooring and paint that I did, and I made $93,000 based on the cash flow and the sales price when I exited that property. So in 7 years, I took $4,000, I turned it into $93,000. I had a property manager the entire time, so I didn't have to deal with the headaches. And that was my first foray into house hacking. That's pretty sweet. Now, if I could do that 10 times, I'd take 40 grand and I turn it into $1 million. I'd be okay with that. And no, this isn't me just saying, hey, I bought an $800,000 house. It went up to $1.1 million. Now I'm a millionaire, like some other gurus online, which is just complete and total. Because that's not how you're for one, your primary residence doesn't count towards your net worth for a lot of banks. For 2, you count the equity, not the home value in your net worth. And for 3, I'm not some fluffy guy who's just here to make it sound like I got rich easy, right? So the second time I house hacked, I actually couldn't use a mortgage because I was only going to live there for so long, and there were all these other weird things going on. It was mid 2019 that I made this decision. And so I actually found a place that allowed me to rent a 4-bedroom, 3-bath house that was brand new in a neighborhood. It was so new that they asked me if I wanted them to put in real grass or turf, and I went with turf. And so this little turf backyard that I didn't have to mow, and I got to live in the house. I was the first tenant they ever had in this brand new development, and they agreed, this was in San Diego County, for me to pay $3,000 a month. I signed a 2-year lease, and they were going to let me Airbnb other rooms while I rented, and so while my family was out of town. And so I rented 2 of those bedrooms out on either Airbnb or at one point to a friend the full time. And I was paying $3,000 a month in rent, and I was making about $2,500 from the rentals. And then after you factor in tax and stuff like that, I was coming kind of close to break even on what I would have been paying in rent. But my BAH was $3,250 a month. And so I was saving $250 a month on top of my monthly rent and getting $2,500 back from my rent. So I was getting $2,750 a month in my pocket that would have been going to rent or mortgage or whatever, that I was then able to reinvest. So over that 18 months or whatever, almost 2 years that I lived there, you do the math, that's $50,000 that I was able to invest elsewhere that I would have been spending on rent and never having seen again. And then this very house right here, the upstairs is an Airbnb. So this is a 6-bed, 3.5-bath house. The upstairs is a 4-bed, 2.5-bath, and the downstairs is a 2-1. And I use the downstairs as my office, which saves me and my team about $1,500 a month in rent. And then in the backyard, I have a little tiny home. Yeah, tiny home, I know. And I live in the little tiny home. And that, like, if I rented a place for myself, it would probably cost me about, $750 on the low end of $1,500 a month, maybe $2,000 a month if I wanted a nicer spot. But even for like that little tiny home, I'd probably be out around $750 to $800 a month. And so I'm saving that $2,000 plus in the interest in the office and living space for myself. But the Airbnb covers all the costs of this place, so it's totally free for me. I actually make about $500 a month on this house. And so I bought this. I've got no money left in it. I paid $365. It's worth $500, and I owe $334. So I've got $150,000 in equity. It pays me $500 and some change a month to own it, and I'm saving over $2,000 a month on where I would choose to live. This is a huge win. This is the third time I've done it. When I move again, I will do it again. I will house hack in a way that I'm not coming out of pocket for my mortgage and that I can continue to live really cheap and just reinvest the rest. And I will tell you that that was what allowed me to leave the military early without the pension, was that I had set myself up for success with living for free and having other rentals start paying me to own them because I was able to make this happen. And the beauty is that with the VA loan and the FHA loan, but the VA loan, you guys are able to do this as well. And even better, if you do this around military installations while you're PCSing, you're going to get a really quality tenant because they're mostly service members and vets, which by and large are better tenants than the overall population. And on top of that, military bases are very insulated from recessions. And that's because all of the employees are on W-2 salary payroll from the government, the most secure, employer you could be tied to. They all get BAH, and the BAH doesn't just go down right away. Like, let's say property prices did start to drop. The way BAH works is that you're locked into the BAH when you checked into that duty station until you leave. The only thing that can happen is BAH can go up to keep up with prices. BAH cannot go down while you're living there unless, you get like demoted or something like that, which you shouldn't be doing anyway. Also, service members and vets are actually incredibly easy to get qualified for mortgages and the VA. And if you have a good lender who knows how to use this, buying a duplex, triplex, fourplex with the VA is actually easier than with a lot of other products because like an FHA or conventional loan adds 0.5% to 0.75% interest rate to your mortgage if you buy a multifamily, but the VA does not. So you'll get the same interest rate as if it was a single family. And because you've got a steady career with the BAH and everything else, you're actually kind of a shoe-in for qualifying. Now, I know there are a lot of bad stigmas and misunderstandings and myths about the VA loan, but I'm telling you right now, I run the largest military investing community in the world. I talk to thousands of vets a year. We have helped people buy hundreds of millions of dollars worth of real estate within our community. The VA loan is the single best mortgage product in the world. And if anybody tries to tell you it sucks or it can't do this or it can't do that or that is an agent or a lender who just really does not understand the VA loan, and you should work with somebody else. Because I hate seeing this from people where they're like, oh, the VA loan can't do this, the VA loan can't do that. Zero down isn't competitive in my market. None of that is true. The seller shouldn't give a whether you put 0 down or 100% down on their house because the bank, one way or the other, they're getting the full check at the closing table. You putting 0 down doesn't make you a less qualified buyer. It means you're saving money in your pocket for emergencies, which makes you probably a more secure buyer. And your salary is not going to go away. So I could go off and off and off on this rant, but just know the VA loan is amazing. We'll link a little QR code over here. If you'd like an introduction to an agent or lender in your area that's actually good at this stuff, we've got a huge network of people. I'm happy to make introductions for you. It doesn't cost you anything, just, whatever. But not the point of this video, just a good resource. Now, I told you about some of my examples. We have examples from all over my community. We've got a guy who bought a 5-bedroom, 4-bath house that he bought for $721. He owes like $650 on it. It's worth over $1 million right now. It pays him $1,500 a month while he's stationed in Japan. And when he lived in it, it paid him $500 a month. And it was 5 bedrooms. He was a single lieutenant, I think a captain. Now I think he's a major. And he rented to single staff and O in the Marine Corps. And that house was like where they threw down for the Super Bowl. Like they had a great time. They had a billiards room. They had a home gym in the garage, like beautiful, like dream home style. That's probably going to be his forever home. And he is getting paid $1,500 a month to own it while he's overseas. He got paid $500 a month to own it while he was in it. And it's got $500,000 in equity since he bought it 5 years ago. That's amazing. What could you do with an extra $500,000 to your net worth at $1,500 a month in your pocket? And you don't have to do anything with the house. Now I go on and on and on about examples for people that we've helped house hack. I've got testimonials, I've got all this stuff. The bottom line is this strategy is amazing. and I'd love to help you guys navigate it. So again, you can make an intro to one of those agents or lenders. Drop me in the comments any questions you guys got. I've got a bunch of resources, and I'll link to a video here in a minute that'll give you a full like hour-and-a-half walkthrough of how to do this strategy. It's a YouTube video. It's free. Like, I'm not trying to sell you anything on this, so don't worry about it. Real quick, I want to show you the math behind my claim that this could help you retire 30 years faster, just doing it even once, right? So here we go. The average American only saves about 4% of their income, right? So let's say you make $10,000, you save $400. Now, that's not the worst thing in the world, but it's certainly not going to get you rich fast, right? The average American spends about 33% on housing month in and month out, right? And so to average that out, homeowners are between 28 and 32% of their income goes to housing, and renters are about 35%, but it averages to about 33% of the average American spends on their rent or their mortgage or wherever they're choosing to live their housing, right? So again, if you make $10,000 a month, that means you're saving $400 and you're spending $3,300 a month on rent or mortgage. What if you could combine those? And now it's $3,700 a month that you can save and invest because your tenants are paying for you to have that home. You are living in it for free, maybe even getting paid, but we're not trying to make this too fancy of an example, right? Because with my buddy Rio's example I just gave you, he would actually have gone from $400 a month in savings and $3,300 in rent or whatever to $3,700 plus it was cash flowing $500, so to $4,200 a month in his pocket on $10,000 in income, or on $10,500 in income because of the cash flow. Now we're trying to keep this simple, right? So let's just say you went from $3,300 in housing expenses and $400 in savings to $3,700 a month that you can save to invest. Now, math in public, I just used a calculator to make sure my math was right. That's $44,400 that person, this example, is now able to save and invest in just year one of owning this home. That's not including that the property went up in value, that you're paying down the mortgage, or your tenants rather are paying down your mortgage, and that if you were investing that money, there's a chance you'd be earning a good return on it, which means that $44,400, even at 1% interest, would be higher than $44,400, right? So there is a chart out there that talks about your financial freedom journey. And essentially, like, depending on the percentage of your paycheck that you save every month, if you invested that in index funds, you could figure out how many years to your retirement, right? And so basically the way this math works is like this. This works off what we call the 4% withdrawal, meaning that if you have $1 million in your retirement account and you take 4% of it, so 40 grand every year, then you will be able to do that indefinitely because the account will continue to grow at such a rate that you'll never actually deplete your $1 million, which is ideal because you don't want to like run out of retirement before you run out of life, if that makes sense. Ideally, you want to give stuff to your family or friends or whoever when you pass away, rather than just like running out of money and being like, well, so this is kind of the way the math works. They say, let's say we're just gonna make math easy. You need $40,000 is what it costs you to live right now. So for $40,000 a year, you could live your life without having to work anymore because you're spending 40 grand a year. If you made 40 grand a year from that 4% withdrawal, which means you have $1 million in assets, then you could just be retired, break even, like whatever. It wouldn't be luxury, but it'd be enough to live on. And so there's math out there that figures out, hey, if you save 1% of your paycheck, it would take this many years, and 10% of your paycheck, it would take this many years, and how fast you can get to that $1 million. And this math works no matter, if you're trying to retire with $1 million in the account or $2 million in the account or $3 million in the account because you want to have $120K a year in income coming in from that. Like, the math works, right? So we're just going to talk in percentages rather than specific dollar amounts, so that you can understand this. If you were just saving that 4% from your income, which again is, remember, what the average American saves, it would take you 52 and a half years to get to that $1 million and be able to pull out $40,000 a year and not have to work again. So if you're 20, that means at 72 and a half, you could stop working. It's not exactly sexy. Now, again, this doesn't factor in pensions and anything else, disability, whatever, but you get the idea. Now, if you take that 4% and you bump it to 37% because you're no longer paying it to live anywhere and you're saving your housing expenses, now we're talking 23 years. So going from 52 and a half to 23 years saves you basically 30 years on your journey to retirement. And you could continue to do this. You could do this time and time and time again, which is how we've got people to go from 50 years to get to their retirement to 30 years to 20 years to 10 years to 5 years to holy. And I'm telling you, It took me 5.5 years to go from dead broke to millionaire, never had to work again once I left the military. Now, obviously I do stuff, but I do this because I love this, right? And so that's the math behind this. It really can change your life. House hacking is incredibly powerful, and we're on a mission to help 10,000 service members and vets achieve financial freedom in the next decade, and I'd love for you to be one of those. So I'm going to leave some links down below for free resources and even a free webinar that I give every week. Now, right up here, I'm going to link to a video I did a couple months ago that is a complete guide to house hacking. This is like a 60-minute presentation with a 30-minute Q&A on the back of it that will walk through exactly how to use this strategy. Also, we'll drop a link in the description to grab a free copy of my book. My hope is to just help you guys out with this ecosphere. Now, we do have some higher level resources and communities and stuff that we'd love to invite you guys to when you're ready for it. But bottom line is this: if we can get you to use your VA loan and house hack and live for free, that one step can shave your retirement down to half, like time to retirement. And then we can really start talking about how to use that money to reinvest in both yourself and your life to take you to the next level and get you to financial freedom incredibly fast. I know this probably sounds too good to be true because you're leery of all these stupid gurus out there who sell you a bunch of but I'm just telling you that if you use your VA loan correctly, it will change your life. We've helped hundreds of vets do this. I'm not selling you anything on here. Free book, free video to watch, all the things, and I cannot wait to hear more about your story and hear about your success down the road. So please let us know and comment down below what you got out of this video. I love you guys. Have a great day.